What's up, everybody, on this Monday evening? I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Rocky Miller podcast. And of course, I'm Rocky Miller. I have a great show prepared for you today. We have a tremendous guest from, we'll have Bryan Fulford here from Rattler Nation. I like saying that, Rattler Nation. He's going to come in and give us some insight and learn about Rattler Nation as well as himself. He'll tell us about, if you don't know Bryan, Bryan is one of the co-hosts of the O&G podcast here on YouTube. And I love watching his content. He usually keeps us informed on all that is going on with FAMU. And considering everything that's been going on with FAMU the last 2 years, you know that's a full-time job and some overtime. So with no further ado, I'd like to bring up none other than Bryan Fulford. Hold on, let me see if I can get this right. Let me get the applause, Bryan. Hold on, let me get the applause.
That's not crickets. I'm like, I heard crickets. I'm like, man, is that cold?
Oh, no. I'm trying to get the applause, right? See, there you go. There we go, Bryan. I'm over here fumbling around, man. Bryan, first off, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I reached out to you through another Rattler, my co-host, Steve Campbell. He made it happen for me. You were one of the guys I thought of when I thought about coming up with this series of interviewing HBCU content creators and media personalities. And so you're one of the guys that has been around quite a long time. And so I want to thank you for coming on, man.
Hey, Rocky. Well, first off, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me on. And I apologize to you and your listeners, your watchers, for last week's technical issues, all on me. I know how hard it is trying to book guests and schedule guests. And then when things go haywire, so I really felt bad about that. I misplayed how easy it would be to move into a new apartment and get everything set up like that. So that's totally on me. I should have had a little more foresight, but I'm glad to be here with you.
All right, man. Hey, I want to, thank you again. Thank you. Hey, you were willing to fight through it, but I thought that it was just one of those situations where you have so much knowledge in the HBCU base. You have HBCUs, around HBCUs. You also Rattler have so much knowledge about what's going on with Rattler Nation. And we want to know what's going on in Rattler Nation. Y'all always have a lot going on. So I didn't want to struggle through any audio technical difficulties. I want this live and in color, HD, 4K, whatever we could get it in, man, because I know this was going to be one heck of an interview. So first question, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
What is your relationship and how did you establish a relationship with FAMU?
Wow. It goes, I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana, so I'm a Midwest kid, but I'm the product of two HBCU alums, two Norfolk State alums. So even moving, I grew up in Norfolk. Well, I shouldn't say grew up. I was born in Norfolk, moved from Norfolk to Virginia when my dad moved at the age of like 4 or 5, somewhere in there. So
ain't Norfolk in Virginia?
Norfolk, Virginia. Yeah, Norfolk, Virginia. What did I say? But yeah, so I mean, that's where my dad grew up. That's where he met my mom. That's where they went to school. So I'm the product of Spartans, So behold, that's every now and then I show a little love to Norfolk State, because without Norfolk State, I would not be here. So I want to make that very clear. But my appreciation for HBCUs started there. And fortunately, in Indianapolis, back in the mid-'80s, I think 83 or 84, right after they built the first dome stadium in that city, was the Circle City Classic. Indiana Black Expo brought the Circle City Classic to the Midwest. And I think it was one of the first, if not the first HBCU classic in the Midwest. I mean, it catapulted a whole generation of Midwest HBCU folks who went to classics. So my first, I think the first 2 years was like Grambling Valley. I mean, had a chance to see Jerry Rice and that Mississippi Valley team in the inaugural game. Outside of seeing HBCUs in a Jet magazine or Ebony at the barbershop or hearing from my dad, that was my indoctrination. And then eventually you would see BET Sports. And so my dad would educate me while, growing up in the Midwest, college football, that's Big Ten, Notre Dame, right? But my dad educated me on HBCU football thanks to that. So I think it was 87 when Florida A&M came to the Circle City Classic. And all my dad told me was about the band, the Marching 100, because he wanted to be in the 100. He played in the Spartan Legion. I don't even know if they were called the Spartan Legion when he was there back in the 60s or 50s. I don't even know if they were called that, but he played in the band at Norfolk State. So I grew up on the band culture and the music, and I'm so glad. When I first started playing, I had my dad teach me how to play I'm So Glad on my trumpet, right? And then I go and I see the 100. And my dad was telling me about Dr. Foster and everything that the 100 did, and the steps and the movement and the precision. And Rocky, seeing it live for the first time, I fell in love. Wow. I wanted to play everything that FAMU played. I wanted to be part of the 100. My love for music grew after that game. My love of FAMU grew after that. Still, again, did not have very much to see in the realm of FAMU or band life or just HBCU life, again, outside of what? Jet and Ebony. I mean, there's a generation of us who grew up thanks to BET, Jet, Ebony. That's how we kept up with what was going on in the South when we lived in the Midwest. And so, that was my first love. And I went to high school. I switched from playing a trumpet to the sousaphones, all because I saw the 100's sousaphone section. Rocky, unbelievable. Unbelievable. I saw it and I fell in love. I said, I'm putting the trumpet down. I got to go to the sousaphone. Then kind of find out my dad played from the trumpet to the sousaphone. So I was supposed to make it into the 100, Rocky. I want you to know that. But unfortunately, my band playing career ended because I went to a small little private school and our band was horrible. I mean, me and the two other brothers, we were playing Freaky Tales in the stands. And the little Catholic high school I went to, they were like, "What are y'all doing up there in the crowd?"
You mean Freaky Tales by Too Short?
Yes, we had figured out how to play that during the football games. We had figured out how to play that, and some people knew, others didn't appreciate it. And so, we realized after very, very early on that, this band life at this private Catholic high school is not going to work for us like we want it to. So, I just kind of gave up playing music going into my junior year of high school. And I sometimes regret it, because I had played, in the band and so, but it never stopped me from wanting to go to Florida A&M. And that was one of my 3 college choices. I had 2 in-state choices in Indiana, and Florida A&M was my long-range goal, because, coming from Indiana to Florida, I had to find a way to pay for it, and so we found a way. So made it a reality, man, and changed my life. As the shirt says, FAMU changed my life.
So just to get the time period, my co-host Stephen Campbell is my contemporary. We graduated high school the same year, 1988. Okay. And so what that means is he'll say when he went to school, FAMU wasn't very good in football, right? In that time frame. How were they in football when you were there?
Thankfully, in my sophomore year, we hired Billy Joe. And I knew a Billy Joe from the Billy Joe of Central State, who used to come over to the Circle City Classic and whoop up on teams and win NAIA. I mean, so I knew that, FAMU is bringing in Billy Joe. Now, granted, I didn't know the history of the previous coach at that time, Ken Riley, a legend, Rattler legend. All I knew is we were kind of a 500 ball club at the time. And I knew there was this great passion and love at FAMU for football games. And my knowledge of Jake Gaither was very, very light at that time that I walked in the door. But I knew Billy Joe was coming. And I knew that Billy Joe, knew how to recruit. Billy Joe knew how to win. And I knew that FAMU was going to come out of some dark days if they let Billy Joe do what Billy Joe did at Central State. The mid 90s to the late, to almost the turn of the century, that was a golden era of FAMU football that I was privileged and honored, and I enjoyed watching it to the point where we got within, Rocky, a quarter, a game, a possession of going to the national championship.
So you experienced lots of success
that was the era
as a Rattler.
Oh, I mean, that era was beautiful to not only in it, but also to be a young graduate of it as well.
Oh man, that's awesome. So let me ask you this. I don't know if I haven't been around long enough to know if you were the founder of O&G Strike Zone, but I do want to know is what inspired you to create a media platform or be part of a media platform that covers the Rattlers?
This started back in '98. This is around the last semester of being at FAMU. Myself and my friend, almost a brother from another mother, Roy Evans, who we connected through doing some journalism broadcast projects at FAMU. We had the idea to create something called the Black College Sports Network. Because Roy grew up in South Florida. I'm a Midwest guy. And the one thing that we saw going into the late 90s, and we always wondered, why aren't there more national outlets or mediums covering Black college football? We've seen the excitement of the 90s. We're seeing the growth of HBCU spread through the culture of popular TV shows, right? Of that time era, the Cosby Show, Different World, other things, right? The hip hop music, R&B. Black culture and HBCU culture was bringing in lots of students and attention at that time, right? And outside of Onedin, that I was aware of, in the Sheridan Broadcast Network, which I think the Sheridan Poll, which was a part of Ebony and Jet at the time, we knew that there was this internet thing coming, and we knew that being able to broadcast football games on this platform of TV and cable TV. We're watching it happen right in our own backyard of Tallahassee in the South, where regional networks are broadcasting ACC and SEC football games. And we're just thinking, other than BET, right? Why is there just one game a week or maybe two? Why aren't there more? And so we went about the process of trying to focus on doing more for Florida A&M, covering Florida A&M from outside of just the Tallahassee Democrat, outside of the few national. There really wasn't the 24/7, the mass media outlet coverage that you see dedicated to athletic teams back then in the late 90s. And so we kind of started down a path of not only just focusing on Florida A&M, but also Black college athletics as well. I think we did a radio show, Rocky, before your show, my show, we all call ourselves podcasts, right? Well, this is what we were doing in the late 90s. We would have a radio show because we had actually partnered with a local radio station in the Orlando area in the late 90s, right? So we would do a radio show, and we would actually get various coaches to call our show. We would talk to them about their teams and the season, so on and so forth. And then you know what we would do, Rocky? We would put it on the internet for people to download. Did not even know that it would become what is called a podcast. I mean, just think. I mean, I was so we joke about it sometimes. So mad that we didn't have the foresight really to kind of whether coin it a podcast or really kind of. But we were doing that. We were recording radio shows and putting them on the internet for people to listen. Because at the time you had message boards. The MEAC fans page, the SWAC fan page, the band page. The name Fifth Quarter, I think, was the name of the band. So that was the message boards were how we communicated with other fans from other regions, right, and other fan bases. And so we would record our show. When we're talking to coaches from out of the CIAA, the SIAC, wherever, and we would have them, we would put those hour-long shows on the internet, and people would download it. And so, fast forwarding almost 20 years later, right? There still hadn't been anything that really fit this vision that we had of a show that is dedicated to covering our university, right? And then, of course, the YouTube streaming had picked up. I mean, again, we were already streaming, but the growth of it kind of blew up in the mid 2000s, right? Or 2010s rather. And so we were looking at it about 2018, 19. And I always said we got to have a good group of people. One, we got to have people who understood the history and culture of Florida A&M University. I mean, I felt like I could quarterback it. I can toss to the left, right. But it really, the show is not really about me. And I had to find somebody who either had the knowledge of working in athletics, working at FAMU. And so that's when Roy and I found, we had always been talking and working with Kelvin Rozier and the late Kofi Hemingway. And it just was a natural fit. And it took some convincing, right? I think it took, especially for Kelvin, it took some convincing to talk to Kelvin, because Kelvin is not going to do anything that is not, solid. He's not going to just put his name, reputation on anything out there that's not solid, and he's not going to do it half-a, right? So we had to show him. I had to show him that, hey, look, we're going to plan the show out. We're going to talk about this. There's a lot to talk about. Kofi's going to bring that energy and the history. And Kofi, if you used to follow Kofi on Facebook, Kofi was very passionate about FAMU and just HBCUs in general. He had a band background. So that part there added to some spice for the show. And I'm telling you, Rocky, it is a beautiful marriage. We had Marcus Green, who at the time that we started, Marcus was not one of the main. He was a contributor. Marcus was he covers recruiting like you see it done at the highest level for a P4, P5 program, right? And we're still working on some things to try to grow our background with the recruiting stuff that we cover. But Marcus, he covers it. He covers it deep. And so we knew that, hey, Marcus provides a different side. So we had all these moving parts of four guys who love FAMU. We're all FAMU graduates, and we can all provide something to the show. And I mean, we're coming up on the end of season 4. So we started this right around, I want to say right at the time that we were coming out of COVID, right before we entered the SWAC. So it just kind of fit to say, let's do this show. Let's do this show, and let's talk about FAMU athletics, what it means to move from the MEAC to the SWAC. It's a great time. We had the stuff going on with the Black College Sports Network and some of the other podcasts and shows that we were building. And, honestly, there was a lot of inspiration that I took from the show from what I saw my good friend Charles Bishop and Neely doing with the pregame show, which they were covering Jackson State right at the Dion era, And so I'm seeing this Jackson State podcast, and I'm like, yo, why aren't we doing this for FAMU? I mean, they have just as much history as we do, and they're just as much. I mean, look, at the time, who was more interesting to talk about than Jackson State, right? So we knew that if we got in the mix, it's on, because FAMU, we stir the drink. We keep everybody entertained. I mean, there's always something to talk about. We didn't know what it would be over the next 4 years, Rocky. I know a lot. I mean, we know who could have foreseen that, but we knew that there was always something to talk about from and about FAMU.
And one thing over the last 5 years really 5 years I've been immersed in HBCU college football, but really 4 years really understanding FAMU, because once you guys came to the SWAC is really when I really, got other than one of my all-time favorite Cowboys was a Rattler, Bob Hayes.
Okay.
So that was my that's how I knew FAMU. Cowboy and gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist. So let's not leave that. Right. Let's not leave that little.
Can't leave that out.
Yeah,
fastest man in football, right?
Yeah. So that was my introduction to FAMU. But the thing I've understood about FAMU is that you guys are one of the blue bloods of HBCU college football. With that being said, with being one of the blue bloods, what I'm trying to ask you guys, how was it that you guys didn't have media platforms covering your not only football, but because I asked Reggie Flood this question, and he's a guy who's covered Southern. He's a Southern alumnus. Worked in radio in New Orleans for years, covered Southern for years as well. And I asked him, I said, why wasn't there some type of syndicated national show that covered all HBCUs that was pumped out into all these different markets? And he was like, there was some coaches shows early on when he was talking about the Eddie Robinson show. So that made, you know how long ago that had to be. But, why was it? And it's still almost like this now. And that's one of the reasons why I have you on, Bryan. There's really no central hub to get all the information aggregated for HBCUs and the conversation around HBCU football and athletics, right? Why do you think we're in 2025 and we don't have that network, that news hub, that centralized area where at least, the shows that cover schools, I understand those being local and regional, whatever, but I'm talking about national media platforms that cover HBCUs as a whole.
Rocky, we wonder that ourselves. It does take some money. It really does. I think resources are the number one thing. If I could, we don't even have enough time, and I don't even want to go through all the history of the opportunities and ideas that we have had and that we have presented to people that, Rocky, I think this, in order to really see what we see from, here's what I've learned not to compare. I hate comparing, but I think what you're saying is, if we were to compare, and let's take some other P4 conference, right, or some PWI space, right, and say, why don't we see that with ours, right? I think it's because we don't have enough people with the money to invest in that passion of putting forth the resources to make it happen and do it right. You know, it does take some money. It does. I mean, there's also been leadership in various places, whether it be conferences or schools, that really haven't seen the vision. They've been short-sighted. What can you do for me now? Oh, you give me $20,000. Sure, you can have my rights to stream everything. Sure. What are you going to give us? You're going to give us 500,000? Okay, sure. I'll give you everything. And I'll make it so nobody else can show anything else. That still exists today, Rocky. I'm just saying that, right? That still exists. I hope I may get in trouble for that. But that still exists today. There aren't enough savvy media people running, in my opinion, running or operating in the spaces so that we can partner with businesses that care about the consumers, the HBCU graduates and fans, because I don't think there's not a lack of people that want to cover it. You can look in this space now. There is I love it because again, when whether it be AD Drew and I or Roy, I mean AD Drew and I, we've been doing our show for like the last 8 years when there was maybe a handful of people doing shows like ours. The Black College Sports Network. I mean, there are very few that have been doing or trying to do it as long as we have, but that's because it's a passion of ours. And trust me, whether it be Roy Evans or myself, there have been headaches and heartaches. And I applaud what I see now. Like, I love seeing so many different content creators, so many people covering HBCUs. And yes, everybody's doing it in different ways. And we don't always agree with maybe how everyone is doing it. Some people might be what some say are more controversial than others, right? But it is amplifying the HBCU sports in a broad picture to everybody. And so, why hasn't it grown? It is growing. Maybe it's not growing at the pace that we might like it to, but I'll just use, for example, Rocky, last year, football had an unprecedented amount of coverage. I mean, you could go on any particular Saturday, Rocky, and watch probably 8 to a dozen Black college football games. Rocky, in my lifetime, I had never seen that before. I mean, I created a little spreadsheet where we would keep track of all the games that would be appearing on, whether it be all the different platforms, doesn't matter. The CIAA Sports Network, SIAC, ESPN Plus, HB, it didn't matter. BCSN, whoever. There was YouTube. There was so much opportunities for people to watch games in an unprecedented rate. That was wonderful. Wonderful. And we just have to keep building on that. Now, and then we have to expand it to other sports. We've got to be able to find a way to broadcast more volleyball games. I mean, that's an inventory of some 20 to 30 games in a season that aren't being seen. We've got to find a way to show more basketball games, more baseball, more softball. I mean, the opportunities are there. They're endless. And so eventually it will come. I saw somebody say, I saw one of the posters say that the opportunities and money will come. Yep.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem, Bryan. I ain't gonna say it's a problem. It's just my concern. My concern is this, and I mentioned it to Reggie, is that whether it be you, me, Coach Cole, Scotty, whoever, we build up this appetite for HBCU coverage and HBCU sports. My concern is that some other entity ends up feasting off of that appetite that we've cultivated and built. Meaning that by virtue of the fact they can create the HBCU Sports and Entertainment Network, and then they can pay talent to migrate over, create these shows, platforms, and make them consumable in a way that looks like some of the other programming that exists. Also recruit our talent over, and then we're just the workers and not the people who actually control the narrative and or telling the stories.
Here's why. It's funny you say it that way, because what I have seen over the last 5 to 8, 10 years, there have been entities that have come and tried to do that are still trying to do that. But funny thing is, Rocky, when you don't have the, and look, I'm going to say this. I don't think you have to be an HBCU graduate to understand this culture, but you better have an HBCU graduate who understands this culture working side by side with you. If you are going to be putting up the money, right, you better be able to, and you better be able to have somebody there who can tell you how to make this thing really work and be sustainable. Because for a long time, I've always thought that, businesses would get into doing this because they understand that we as African Americans spend a lot of money. Right. So, there's a market base that spends money. So we'll invest and create something that, we want to target African Americans between, 25, 54, or, whatever those various metrics are, men, women, consumer who spend money, they're college graduates, we want to reach them. Well, let's invest in HBCUs. Let's invest. And, the one thing I have felt like there's a difference between people who want to do things for HBCUs and things with HBCUs. When you want to do things for HBCUs, you move a little differently. When you're just trying to do things with HBCUs, you're only looking at dollars and cents. And it's a slow. If you walk into this thinking you're going to come out and make money in the first, 3 to 5 years, yeah, good luck. Good luck. Hope you got a great business plan for that. Because right now I've seen too many businesses or groups, entities that have tried to come in big and splashy in the get-go. They're not around after 3 years, or they all of a sudden start cutting back into what they're doing, because maybe they're trying to do too much instead of slowly growing it, So I keep saying, I'm telling you, Rocky, I don't know who's going to hit the lottery first. One of us in this space is going to hit the lottery. We just got to keep playing, and then it'd be interesting to see what we do with that money.
I just think, as someone who comes from the outside and who definitely kind of initially didn't understand how protective you guys are of the space. And I originally looked at it as y'all being a insular group, meaning that why can't you have sidewalk fans like everybody else has sidewalk, like Florida State has sidewalk fans and the University of Florida has sidewalk fans. Why can't I just adopt FAMU and be a FAMU fan? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I can. However, if I'm going to criticize or talk noise to other schools, I better have some literature saying I'm an alumni. And so that was always weird. But I do understand why more than I do now, because this is a space to critique and criticize a lot of times. And the criticism sometimes comes out of comparison for people that are not accustomed to functioning within the culture and the framework of HBCU. So I do understand it much better than I did when I initially came on. But but as a person who considers themselves an analyst and a media personality, I'm very sensitive to the fact that when I do have a critique, it's not coming out of a situation where I'm preaching or talking down. It's just that there are things that actually could be done better with the resources that are available to HBCUs right now. I'm not saying you should be doing it like Alabama or the University of Florida. I'm saying with what you have, there's certainly better ways that it could be done. And so I don't shy away from saying that.
Here's what I think. I think there is those of us who grew up in an HBCU, and I'm glad EA talks about mental conditioning, because I'm going to go from this standpoint. Those of us who, especially those of us who went to an HBCU in a college town populated by a PWI, Tallahassee, Baton Rouge, maybe Montgomery, maybe Atlanta. You see where I'm going here, right? When we were at school, right, we, especially in the 90s, we didn't have the same amount of resources that those PWIs had. We still had to, thank you, Houston, exactly. We had to still function. We had to be better than. We had to be better than the folks on the other side of the railroad tracks, right? Even though maybe our resources weren't as much. And so then we started to see that expand from not just the academic side of things, but also the college or the athletic side of things, where, I remember a period of time at FAMU where, honestly, Rocky, many of us used to go over to Florida State's library, and their library had the internet. It's like, what? I mean, so you'd be at I forgot the name of the library over there. We would be over there utilizing this internet, right? Some people were doing other things with it, dating profiles and other stuff like that, foolishness. But if you wanted to get educated and do educational resources, or it would be resource books, materials that wasn't at the FAMU library, right? So from that perspective, take that, and I'm sure that was, I'm sure that existed at a lot of HBCUs. And then we go to athletics. Then you go to athletics, and then you see what dollars are being generated from athletics from the PWIs. And then you look over at what we're having. And so that arms race of always having to compare is tough. It eats at you. And then what even eats at you more in the athletic space, Rocky, there are schools that were right alongside of HBCUs in the 90s that have somehow, through generous donations, they have surpassed and become group of fives. Like, go look at the group of fives today. How many of those group of fives were bumping around in 1AA FCS football with many of us HBCUs 15, 20 years ago?
I've said this a number of times to Campbell. From here in Texas, if you just go back 20 years, I believe Florida A&M's brand was the fourth most powerful brand in Florida, behind Miami, Florida State, and Florida.
It was. It was.
No doubt. And that's pretty, you got to realize 20 years is pretty recent history.
Yes.
But since then, you'd have South Florida, Florida Central, FIU, FAU, Central Florida. I mean, you had at
least four. You named at least four. At least four schools have exploded ahead of FAMU in just the type
Branding.
of the branding, resources, all those things. And you're like, man, if FAMU would have gotten those kind of funds, where would FAMU be right now? You know, and that's wow. Oh, yeah, West Florida, even. I mean, Jesus. I mean it, and so it's something that when we talk about that criticism, yes, I do agree, Rocky. The one thing that I think has sometimes held us back is maybe we haven't always, from an administrative level, whether it be athletics or academics, we haven't operated with a maybe using best business practices or functioning in a way that is going to grow the athletic brand. And so I don't know if I mean there's probably a point in the road where you have to say athletics, do the academic people at your university view athletics as the doorstep to the university, or do they see it as an extracurricular? I mean, and there are valid arguments that someone could realistically make about the role of HBCUs today versus being more of a need to handle all the academic necessities of our communities more than the athletics. And so for those of us who live in the sports world, right, we want to see more. We want to do more. We want to have more. But at what cost?
So, Bryan, therein lies the great dilemma that I see nothing but an area of opportunity for HBCUs. For FAMU, Jackson State, Norfolk State, Delaware State, Southern, Texas Southern, Prairie View, for you guys to be recognized as elite learning institutions, right? You must make an impact athletically in order to be recognized in that way. I don't think there's any two ways about it. And I'm not saying because you do one, it automatically comes. But I think in this climate of with athletics dominating the news cycle, right? An administrator has to take athletics extremely serious because that's the brand that is left on the minds of most Americans about your school. No one is going to know that FAMU is the #1 public HBCU in America, but they certainly know that in 2023, what did Florida A&M do? They won the Celebration Bowl. And from that interest, they can say, hey, we also are the #1 HBCU, public HBCU in the country. I think that you have to take that as a priority because to me, that's the path to greatness in academics. And in whether it be Notre Dame, whether it be Michigan or Ohio State, those schools take that same path. And I think that's the path for HBCUs as well.
I have said that one of my criticisms of our former president at Florida A&M was that if he valued athletics with the same passion that he valued our nursing program, our pharmacy program, our business program, right, at Florida A&M University, Florida A&M University athletics would be in a better place in 2025, right? And so I think that when we have these athletic achievements, this is what I've never understood about the universities, and again, I don't work at a university. I've not worked at a university, but I've always struggled. And this is part of why I wanted to do the type of show that we have, because I wanted to understand why isn't the university more, why aren't they working more in sync with athletics? I mean, there are so many things that even today in 2025 that our athletic department and our university, it's getting better, but there's so much that they're not in sync, in my opinion, that I've never understood that. I've never understood why isn't there a better synergy? Because when you win a national championship, Rocky, that you should be running ads, or you should have ads already ready to promote on social media. Our outstanding pharmacy school, our outstanding nursing school, our engineering, our school of business and industry, the journalism school, all of that should be ready to go, fired in the tank, ready. Because yes, when you get on ABC, because we can't just talk about athletics, Rocky, we have to be able to talk about our university. So we have to be able to publicize and talk about our academic programs. And at the same time, the university has to be prepared to help the athletic department fundraise. One of my biggest criticisms during the Celebration Bowl, right? Want to bring in 3/4 of that crowd. And I kept saying to people, this is the time for our athletic brand. No, this is the time for our university and our athletic department to increase the fundraising. There has to be a call to these Rattlers who are going to be coming into Atlanta to, hey, we need all of you to donate $100 to athletics. We are champions. We want to be champions. We want to maintain our championship mojo and energy, right? Here's a QR code. Here's how you can donate. Here's how you can give. Rocky, that was not there. I'm not even going to get into what folks were presented with. Okay, y'all know the jokes. It's out there.
Raffle ticket.
Stop it.
Scratch outs.
Stop
Bingo.
Stop.
Bingo cards.
Stop it. It wasn't there wasn't a clear marketing initiative. It's like we knew we were going to the Celebration Bowl. Like, with all respect, once we got to the SWAC championship game and we're hosting it, we should have been ready. There should have been a plan in place. The minute we beat Prairie View A&M, the next day for the next 2 weeks, we should have been flooding the airwaves. We should have been flooding the alumni boards. We should have been flooding anybody and everybody who was buying a ticket to come to that game. Donate. Athletics. This is what we do. This should have been coming from Florida A&M University, not athletics. Should have been. And so, I applaud the schools who did it. The schools who the assignment, but that's where it has to come from. It has and that connection from all parties. And because one of the great things that I recall when they won 3 and 4 years.
Hey, Bryan, are you froze?
I got you.
Oh, okay. Maybe it may be my internet, Bryan. So
I don't know.
My apologies.
That's all right. No, I just that synergy has to be there, and all the parts. If your athletic director is a vice president, that means they sit at the table with the other presidents or other vice presidents, right? And of course, the president.
Absolutely. So, as you bring up FAMU Athletics, I got to ask this question. This is a question that I'm sure everybody wants to know. With all that's going on and that has going on at FAMU the last year and a half, what exactly is the status of FAMU Athletics?
FAMU Athletics is in a great place because we won the second most SWAC tournament championships this past year. And we won a band of the year. So, if you want to say we won 5 championships, we did. We won a couple of regular season titles. We finished second in a couple more. I know we didn't finish top 2 or 3 in the Commissioner's Cup for the SWAC, but those schools that did are participating in 3 or 4 more sports than us. So, but just like last year, Rocky, where, FAMU was dealing with some controversies, guess what? We still won championships. We're still there. We didn't die. We didn't die. We survived. FAMU Athletics has gone through tough times, but we still find a way to rise because we have great coaches leading our athletic programs. We have a great university. We have a great alumni base. Okay. And so, yes, exactly. We're used to dark clouds. We really are. I mean, we're used to dark clouds, and so we still find a way to rise out. So we aren't dead. We aren't dead. We're far from it. And look, we stumble. I know. I see Dr. Carey. Israel. Yeah, I know we lost the Valley, sure. But we had a lot of other great successes throughout the year, So athletics is good. I know that it's hard for people to believe, but it is. It's in a good place because we have good people. We have good coaches that recruit well, and we have some great students that are wearing orange and green.
Is there anything from a news standpoint you want to update us on regarding the status of AD Suggs?
Nothing other than what is already out there, that she is, according to Dr. Timothy Beard, who is still the interim president until whatever, I guess August, until July 31st, or unless something else happens. I think said that she was on paid administrative leave. And we have 2 very capable administrators leading the athletic department who they worked under AD Suggs, worked with her, and they're very capable people, Mr. Travis Glasgow and Miss Brittany Johnson. And they are very capable administrators. And so the business of Rocky, I used to have a graphic, and since 2000, FAMU has had, I don't know, maybe close to 20 different people leading the athletic department, whether it be on a full-time or interim level, right? I mean, there have been that many people. So we're no stranger to distraction, maybe a little bit of what some people might look at as an instability, but it's really not. It's really not. So I know that's hard to think about from the outside, but if it were as bad as people think it is, right, things would have fallen apart. You would see a serious decline in the number of championships, wins, and things of that nature. But you haven't seen that yet. So, that tells me that we've got great people, men and women, leading our athletic programs.
Hey, Bryan, we're approaching an hour, and I promised you I wouldn't keep you longer than an hour, but it looks like the people are very engaged in speaking. So
it's all good, man. I got
okay.
time. It's all good.
Okay.
I got nowhere to go, Rocky.
Because I'm only about halfway through of the must questions I have to ask you on this. So, but before we go further, I just put a link on all of our everywhere we're broadcasting. If you're not already a member of the Rocky Miller YouTube page, that's where HBCU Coaches Corner broadcast every week. Please go to our YouTube page and subscribe, please. Just take out a minute. Now, guess what? You can go over there and Bryan will be broadcasting as well. Just, and you'll be able to view it on the Rocky Miller page. If you happen to be viewing it somewhere other than the Rocky Miller page, I greatly appreciate you clicking on the link and coming over and subscribing. But again, let's get back to the conversation, Bryan. So here's my question to you, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
What does a successful season for Coach Cozy looks like? And then tell me what a successful season for the FAMU fan base looks like.
All right. I think the FAMU fan base wants to be in the SWAC championship game again. We want to be in the Celebration Bowl again. Okay. We want to beat Jackson State at home. We want to beat Bethune-Cookman in the Florida Classic. Now, those four things, the order of those four things will vary from Rattler to Rattler. Okay? So I think all four of those things are very important in the success of the season, and so yes, we have some very good home games. So it's like if we were to go 3-1 in some of those things, I mean, the fan base will look back on the season and be very happy, to be honest with you. But I think even if we go 2-2, depending upon which two things that happen, of those four things I mentioned, it'll still be viewed as a successful second year under Coach Cozy. Now, you asked me, what does Coach Cozy think of in terms of a successful season?
No, I said, what is a successful season
look like for Cozy? Okay, so he went 7-5 in his first year. Okay. It's tough following a championship level winning coach, a legend. And I'm not, if you want to criticize me for calling Willie Simmons a FAMU coaching legend, you can, but I think he is. He's on the let me say, I want to make sure I get it right. Mount Rushmore. No.
Oh, he lost in 3 years. He lost 2 games.
Yeah. So
in the SWAC. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you can. Again,
so I'm not overstating that. I'm not overstating it. Okay.
Absolutely. Good. Any coach with a 6-year run like Willie Simmons, you cannot deny that he's a coach. He's a coaching legend at that, even at the great Florida A&M University.
Exactly. I would say he is up there as one of the, whether you want to say the 4 or 5 of our greatest coaches to have coached at Florida A&M. He is one of the 5. One of the 5, right? I would think, without a doubt, in my opinion. And so with that said, it's tough following that. And especially with the 2024 that we had. Remember, right? Having the cloud over you becoming the coach. Then you have roster turnover in the spring, to the point where we couldn't even run a full spring game, right? We only had like 50, maybe even 60. I don't even know if we had 60, but between 50 and 60 guys available for the spring. So you had to rebuild the roster because you lost 40 some odd players, not just the transfers, but guys who had exhausted their last year of eligibility. So you're rebuilding a roster. You're also working with men coaches that, while it's one thing to coach with other coaches as part of another person's staff, and yes, there was a lot of respect while Coach Simmons was there. At some point, you come to a difference of agreement. It may be in that if Coach Colsey is the head coach, and obviously he was tabbed to take that position over other people, he's going to have to some point establish his own way of doing things, and he's going to have to bring in his own people. And so that was a little rocky during the course of the football season. And I think he was trying to balance all of those various things. And then what happened in the summer? Jerami Gate happened. Then you lose the AD who tabbed you, and all that was going on, right? So all of that's going on, and Coach Colsey did a great job of trying to keep the team focused on what was important and trying to win ball games. So, we lost. I mean, nobody wants to hear this, Rocky. We were 2 bad plays away from walking out of Jackson with a win. I know nobody wants to hear that. I mean, all credit to Jackson State who won. All credit to Jackson State who won. But, without a bad second down play and a worse third down play that led to a touchdown, who knows? We lose our quarterback at Prairie View, and we end up losing that game. And the Valley game, I can't even. It just was what it was. The number of turnovers. All that said, we still finished the season with two strong wins. Finished 7-5. Colsey makes changes to the staff. And he's got more players, bigger roster. I think this is going to be a great year for Coach Colsey. He's taken over the defense, which shows me that he's taking the initiative to making sure that it looks like what he wants it to look like. And I think he trusts now the offensive signal caller that he has to that they're on the same page, because it's a guy that he brought in. So all of those things are in sync now,
Well, one thing a lot of people are saying Willie is overrated and all this kind of stuff. I'll say this: at FAMU, he had a 78% winning percentage.
Mm-hmm.
If you look up the greatest coaches that ever coached at your school, wherever that school is, they don't have a 78% winning percentage. And I don't care who you're talking about. That's tremendous.
Yeah.
And it's even higher than that if you just look at his conference games.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be able to give Willie Simmons his flowers, even if we're not FAMU fans. You know what I mean? Let's be able to be objective about it and say, hey, Willie Simmons had great success at FAMU while he was the head coach. Now, again, and so now I point out, I'm gonna ask you a question, since we obviously have a lot of Jackson State people in this conversation. Who do you think had the better first year replacing a championship coach? T.C. Taylor or James Colsey III?
Push.
Okay.
It's a push. I mean,
okay.
I mean, what did T.C. Taylor's first year?
75.
It was 75. 75. I mean, the same thing. I mean, and he lost just as many people as James Colsey in that first year. So I can't see I can't see one having a greater year than the other. 7-4. Okay, so you played one less game. Okay, so percentage-wise, great. But didn't they lose? Did they lose homecoming? Didn't they lose a game? Jackson State, didn't they lose a game that first year, TC Taylor? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to say I'm wrong, Rocky, but I think they lost a game at home that first year that many people didn't expect them to lose. Right? Okay. So
yeah, I mean, the point, what I just wanted to, there's some parallels there. There's some parallels that I want to point out and compare. I just didn't ask you that question to try to aggravate or agitate the Jackson State fans. Fact of the matter, Jackson State was coming off a SWAC championship and a Celebration Bowl appearance. FAMU was actually coming off
keyword, Rocky, a Celebration Bowl appearance.
Yes,
2 of them. 2 appearances, Rocky. Go ahead and say it. 2 appearances.
Well, again, I'm not trying to antagonize the fan base. I'm just stating the facts. And you guys were coming off a SWAC championship and a Celebration Bowl win, and a college national championship. Now the difference is very early in the transition period from Deion Sanders, they tabbed TC Taylor as the head coach, yes. Right? And I think ultimately that gave the program stability. Yes. I'll say this. I'll go out on a limb and say this. Just being a reasonable person, had Cozy got that same appointment in the same fashion that TC Taylor got it, I think he would have been able to field a much more talented team than he ultimately fielded. In 2024. That's just that's my opinion. But I think if it was handed over in the way that Deion handed it over to TC or Ashley handed it to TC, if Tiffany, A.D. Sykes, had handed it over to Cozy the same way, I believe, they could have fielded. Cozy would have had a better chance at fielding a much more talented team. And that's not me evaluating Cozy as a coach. I'm just looking at the situation and circumstance and actually what they lost in that time period versus if they have those guys up front that they lost, they're not having a problem stopping the run.
Here's the thing, Rocky. Even if Willie Simmons had not resigned and taken another job, right? One thing that would have still existed is that FAMU was losing 30 to 40 players. So that wasn't going to change, right? It might have made a difference in the portal, maybe. I don't know, but the fact that you were still losing players. Now, what it may have done, the instability, it may have slowed down your ability to have a spring roster of 80, 90 guys because circumstances, right?
What about this, Bryan? The window was prime portal recruitment time period. And how could you go speak to a kid when you don't know who your head coach is going to be?
Exactly.
In that time frame. Like that's the only reason why I'm saying. I'm not saying, No,
it's a fact. It's a fact that nobody wants to talk about because we don't want we want to blame. We want to look for. But look, I mean, the facts are Ashley Robinson at Jackson State was the stabilizing force in the transition. Okay, he went from Coach Prime to Coach Taylor. Okay, the ability to succeed was there. Now, on the other side, what you had was instability, infighting, uncertainty, lack of confidence. You had all of those things hanging over Florida.
And then the bad blood of the whole hiring of Cozy.
Yeah.
Because I think that, just talking to my good friend Steve Campbell and my co-host, there was an infighting. There was some distrust or mistrust that kind of was apparent during that period. And it created, I think, resentment among the fan base and the FAMU alumni. I'll just say that.
It did. I can't disagree with you there. And that's why I applaud everything Coach Colsey went through in 2024. And I think I told him this at the end of the season. That's why I was really proud of the way we finished the season, because to get your first head coaching collegiate job, where he did, and in the state he grew up in, at near the school where he went and played, to get that opportunity, he made, and to be able to have to handle all the things that he handled, from the distractions, he handled it with a lot of grace and class and humility. And so that's why I have a belief that we have the right person leading our football program. I really do. Because a lot of other coaches might have folded under, I don't know if you want to call it the pressure, but they might not have been so poised as James Colsey, Dr. James Colsey III.
Oh man, so he is a doctor.
I believe he did get his doctorate degree. If I believe that did happen. I know it's not publicly known, but I do believe he did get his doctorate. Well,
I don't know if he has his doctorate. I'll trust your word on that. We do know he is a high level baseball umpire, and softball. For just a small softball, and just for a small moment, that was I don't know if scuttlebutt or whatever you want to call it, but it seemed like the fan base didn't care about it one way or the other.
No, again, one more thing that FAMU does that draws attention, that gets the fan base excited, gives them something to talk about. Who else provides this level of opportunities for folks to talk about?
And Bryan, I said this off the air, and I'll say it on the air. This is my assessment. This isn't Bryan's assessment. In my assessment, FAMU, in the lore of HBCU sports, you guys are the Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, the LA Lakers. That's what you guys are.
America's team, Rocky. Go ahead and call us America's team. Rocky Miller called us America's team.
No. What I mean by that is your name, your brand carries the interest of all HBCU fans.
Yes. And
so I think a lot of times the things that involve you guys end up ringing bells in places that maybe Bethune-Cookman wouldn't, or
never will.
South Carolina State wouldn't.
Yeah.
Overall, do you guys think that brand that you guys have is a hindrance or a help to your overall advancement of your cause, which is to win championship?
What's most frustrating, Rocky, is that whether it has been previous athletic administrators or previous university presidents, we have not capitalized on the brand the way we should or could. I'll just leave it at that. And so when I look at fellow SWAC schools that have bigger budgets and more sports, but at the same time, we're winning at a pace equal to or better than them. Man, I just keep saying, woo, don't mess around and let us get some real great, strong leadership that understands how athletics can grow the university's name and brand, or have that athletic administration that knows how to capitalize on the brand and really make the relationships that we have already. Again, what are we? FAMU is the only King James apparel school, right? The only. Like, there are other brand Jordan schools. There's Under Armours out there. There's Adidas. There's only one, second, one of the top 3 or 4 greatest basketball players to ever play the game. So I mean, there's opportunities there to grow our brand, and then when it finally happens, we will truly be able to capitalize like the Yankees, the Cowboys,
Lakers,
those brands that you so beautifully compared the FAMU brand to, and look, it's coming. It's coming. We just gotta. It's just a slow work in progress.
I got a question for you, and it's basically there's 2 questions. Well, there's 2 answers, and I'll ask it like this: Before you get out of here, give me your top 5 football brands historically, and then give me your top 5 bands historically.
So the first one is the top 5 HBCU football brands.
You can go bands first.
Bands. Well, I obviously have to start with the band of the year, the Marching 100, without saying. And I do think the Sonic Boom and the Human Jukebox sit right there, as 2 very good bands. The Spartan Legion, I have enjoyed watching their growth. So I would put them in that mix. My 5th one, I don't know, Rocky. 5th one. That's a tough one.
Ocean of Soul, The Storm.
I can't really say there was a time. So I'm saying this 5th with an asterisk. There was a time when the Marching Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman were really, really on their game. Then they something happened and they went digital and tried to raise, Miriam McLeod Bethune out the grave and threw her up on a video monitor, and they misstepped. Something happened, and I say the Marching Wildcats with an asterisk, because when they have been right, they've been pretty good. When they are right. But I don't know what's been going on with them of late. Over the last couple seasons, they've done some real questionable things that, I don't know, money, resources, whatever. Right? Maybe it's coming back. Maybe they'll get back to where they were when they were, but I will say they do have one of the there are catchy little fight songs and catchy little things that we grow in, that if you were just a college football fan, right? There's certain things with bands and music, there's sounds like Jackson State's, Get Ready, but the Wildcats, they do that whole, bump, 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 right? And they, it just is catchy. If I didn't have a rivalry dislike of them, I would be entertained by it more. Sometimes I am. So I will say them with an asterisk is my fifth.
All right. And then your top five HBCU football programs, brands, whatever you want to, however you want to.
Well, I mean, obviously, including Florida A&M, you have to include Tuskegee Institute / University. You've got to include that Tuskegee as a brand, the winningest Black college football program. First off, then you have to include Grambling. You got to include Grambling right there alongside Florida A&M. 3. Southern, Rocky. I would include Southern. I would include Southern. I really would. I would include Southern. There. What's that? 4?
Mm-hmm. So, hey, think about this, because you have Southern, Grambling, FAMU, Tuskegee. You only have one more left.
I only have one more left. If I'm looking immediacy of right in front of me, you might think I'm going to say Jackson State. But from a historical perspective,
and that's the lens we're looking at this,
I would say Tennessee State.
All right.
Would be just maybe historically a nudge in front of Jackson State. I'm again historical. I know.
And Bryan, that's interesting. You and Reggie Flood answered with the same 4-5 schools when we talked about that. And he, and he did mention that JSU is outside of that top 5, but they're admirable, and they have some success. He says, but you can't deny what Tennessee State has done, and then the top 4.
If you were talking about just the past 20 years or 25 years, like if you were just talking, Rocky, this century, like we are in a new millennium, in a new century, folks, I would definitely say Jackson State. But the question was historical. We're talking 100 years of HBCU football, not just the past 25 years, folks. Okay.
So that's what because like I say, I have these conversations not only because, to promote you guys and promote the work that you do, but I also want to learn in these conversations that I'm having, Bryan. And so in this conversation, I have to understand that I have to look at the history of Tuskegee and what they've meant to Black college football. Because I remember talking to Coach Cole, and Coach Cole, in his national championship season at TSU, he mentioned that they lost to Tuskegee, which is a Division I school, the year that he won the SWAC and went on to play in the Heritage Bowl, whatever it was called back then. And he says, and I said, man, I thought that may have cost you your job, losing to a D2 school. He said, no, that's Tuskegee. They ain't no slaps. You know what I mean? That was his response. Like, hey, and what you're saying, they're the most winningest program, that means that they probably got a lot of D1 skins on the wall over the years.
Yes. No, they definitely do. And you know what? I think a lot of times, and I hope, I know there's going to be people who are going to say, oh, of course he wouldn't say such and such a school. But I mean, just because, my good friend Dr. Cavill would say, if I'm going to put Jackson State in, who would I take out? So if I've given you a flawed top 5, well, who are you taking out? So and so, and that's not to that list is not to diminish the history that Jackson State has, especially within the SWAC, right? And the SWAC being one of the oldest conferences in HBCU or in just college athletics in general, right? So, but I think people will obviously look at it a certain way. And you know, if you want to live and be in your feelings, okay, you can do that. But, you know, again, I just think you can have two things can be true, right? The past 25 years have been really good to Jackson State, right? And historically, the past 100 years, or maybe the last 60, 70 years, have been really good for Tennessee State. Both can be true, right? So, you know, we have to appreciate all. One of the best things that I have loved about joining the SWAC, or my FAMU joining the SWAC, Rocky, is it allowed me to learn more about the culture and the history of the SWAC. Because, again, remember, I grew up a Midwest kid, and all I knew was Grambling Southern, and then that blip, that little bit of period of time where you had Valley and Alcorn. You had Valley because you had Jerry Rice. You had Alcorn because you had Steve McNair, right? But joining the conference helped me to appreciate the history of the rivalries and the intense matchups. And there is so much great history. That's why I'm so glad that FAMU is a part of this. And so while we, you know, people may look at us and say FAMU fans come in all loud and boisterous. Well, we do have a good history. It just was in another conference or two different conferences. Remember, FAMU was before a part of the MEAC. We were part of the SIC. So, you know, we've been a part of two great conferences, and now we're a part of a third great conference. So there's a lot of history that Florida A&M gets to say we are a part of, and having gone from one conference to the next. And that's the one thing I have really enjoyed, the passion of the SWAC fan bases, the rivalries, learning the history. It really, and not just in football, Rocky, but there's some great historical notes that I'm always learning as we get into various sports seasons, you know, whether it be baseball, when we get to talking about the historic years that Grambling and Jackson State, I think it's Grambling and Jackson State, or it's either Jackson State and Southern. See, that, you know, this is my history. Probably Jackson State and Southern. I think it was Jackson State and Southern. The years that those two schools would just own the conference. I mean, there's great history in the SWAC, and that's what we have to talk about more. That's what we have to celebrate more. And while at the same time we go at each other about our failures and our successes, we have to stop for a second and educate the next generation about the history. And so, you know, that's the one thing that I'm hoping that having these conversations and other entities, and that all of these archive, whether it be pictures, videos, things like that, can be made more accessible so that we can really share more often. We can share these the great history that we have. So there you go.
Let me ask you this before we get out of here. Do you agree with Mr. Campbell's assessment that even though you guys are new to the SWAC is a natural fit for FAMU?
Oh, yes. It is a natural fit. It's a natural fit geographically, culturally, from the way we value the athletic achievements of the legends that FAMU. I mean, it's just different. It's just different. I mean, it's hard to when I think about going into those MEAC places, with the real exception of South Carolina State and North Carolina A&T. the attendance, I don't know if the attendance was ever as good as they are when we go into SWAC spaces, SWAC stadiums, to be honest. It's a totally different culture, but because look, we stick our chest out and we can talk with the best of Southern, Jackson State, Grambling. Is there anybody else that really talks in the SWAC? Nobody else really talks in the SWAC. Everybody else is kind of, because there's like they're scared. I think part of it, Rocky.
I think Alcorn does a good job of it.
Okay, Alcorn. There you go. Okay, yeah, there you go. Because most of them, the other half of the SWAC, they hide and it's like they stand in the back corner at the party because they know the loudest people in the room are going to be somebody from Jackson State, Southern, Grambling. And then if Alcorn comes in, they just going to be loud. But, everybody else is kind of like, oh, I don't want them jumping on us. So we'll kind of laugh. But then, FAMU comes in the room and we can talk right there and be loud right there with them because we have that pedigree and we can. So,
yeah. I'll say this. I've been to brag once. Unfortunately, it was in the middle of a monsoon, the SWAC championship in 2003. I've been to Southern, their homecoming. I've been to Prairie View's homecoming as well. I think you guys are a natural fit culturally. I think, though I didn't get a chance to experience the tailgate because of the weather, I did go into the VIP area in the end zone, and the hospitality and camaraderie that I experienced there was fantastic. So,
you coming to homecoming? Are you coming to homecoming this year? Right?
I'm gonna have to. I want to put that on. I really want to. I'm not sure. I may have a conflict, but I really want to. I really want to come to homecoming. I just hadn't put it on the calendar just yet, man. But I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, October 18th. October 18th.
I know what date it is and everything. I know it's gonna be a big deal, man. But I just, like I say, it's a little early to put it on the calendar. But if I do, I definitely will let you know, Bryan, man. Hey, man, where can everybody find you after this podcast, man? Find the work that you've done, and how would they go about keeping in touch with you as well?
Well, the O&G Strike Zone at O&G Strike Zone is where you can find us. We are part of the Black College Sports Network at MyBCSN1, the number one. That's everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Our show, the O&G Strike Zone, is Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Then I also host the Sunday night BCSN Sports Wrap with AD Drew. We've been doing that for the past 8 years. And so we do that show Sunday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern on the Black College Sports Network as well. So that's where you can find me. That's where I am. And so if I'm it's been a labor of love. I love talking about sports. Again, I grew up in the Midwest, Midwest guy, grew up in the Big Ten and Notre Dame. So, but being able to talk about and follow along with our HBCU teams and culture is wonderful. And so however I can help to spread the love and enthusiasm with fellow alums, or as you called yourself, sidewalk fans, hey, please, there's always room. There's always room for more. And, we need to be more opening to more sidewalk fans and, bring them into the space. And hopefully our athletic departments and our universities will continue to publicize the great programs. And I'm not just talking athletic programs, Rocky. I'm talking educational programs.
Absolutely.
That we have at our universities. So that's very important. So,
and like I say, I just want to tell you the work that HBCUs do to change the lives of so many Black people all over the country. I know that's the primary mission of the schools and the reason why they were created. And that's never lost on me. My daughter currently attends Prairie A&M University, so I get firsthand of what a quality education and what a quality institution that is. And so that's always the goal. And I just also as a sports fan, I just want that those first class educations that are being received to be in the same way. I want those sports programs to be promoted and invested in the same way, because I think HBCUs have something very special that will appeal to many sidewalk fans across America.
We got to go to where the people are, Rocky. Every athletic program has to go to where the people are. We got to be in more spaces and places and make our content more available. Get from, I don't know, might be controversial here. Get off these paywalls and pay services and stop charging so much for these games. Make your content more accessible to people, and then, I don't know. That's another topic, story. But we gotta make ourselves more accessible to people. And then Rocky, once we actually have real numbers, tangible numbers that advertisers can see, it makes it a little bit easier to go to that advertiser and sponsor and say, hey, when we have our athletic event, we have X amount of unique visitors that stay for this amount of time,
Absolutely. Hey, Bryan, man, I want to thank you again for coming on, man. This has been a great interview. I've had a tremendous engagement on this podcast, man. Got over 200 viewers most of the time on here, man. You've been a great guest, man. If there's anything I can do in the future to help you out or promote what you do, man, just hit me up and let me know. I'm thankful and I'm definitely appreciative, it, brother.
I definitely will, man. That other thing we talked about last week, I'm gonna hit you back. I'm gonna hit you back on that too. But no, I appreciate you, Rocky, man. I'm glad that you're a part of this space and part of this what my friend Dr. Cavill says, this HBCU sporting diaspora. I'm glad that you're a part of it. And man, keep doing your thing, man. It's all these great conversations. I'm glad to be a part of it. And man, we'll chop it up more down the road.
Hey, and I'm gonna hit up. I got to get Dr. Cavill on here. That'll be a very special interview as well.
Bring your notebook. Be ready to learn, man. I tell you, I love Doc. Every time we bring Doc on the show, man, we learn something, man. Look, he's in education, so I mean, literally, he's not just a doctor by. Sometimes I got. My Twitter handle is, I use doctor, but I'm not a doctor. Dr. Cavill is actually a doctor. And so there's always some education.
And a doctor and really a HBCU Sports Media expert,
exactly.
In my opinion.
Exactly.
So much love, everybody, man. We out of here. Hey, if y'all want to continue to harass Bryan, go to BC.
You know where to find me.
Yeah.
You know where to find me. Wednesday night. You can find me. Come on.
All right, we're out of here.